Alrighty, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. My name is Amali and I'm the events coordinator here at Books Are Magic. Before we get started, I just have a few logistics to point out for how tonight's going to go. First off, we do ask that you keep your mask on at all times while at this event. We will be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A towards the end, so please start thinking of questions to ask and hold on to them. After the talk tonight, Odette will be signing and personalizing books at the desk behind me near the side door. We also have additional books available for purchase tonight. And if you're joining us virtually on the YouTube live stream, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy of Simple Pasta online using the link in the live stream description. So if you don't already know, Odette is the queen of simple, in the best way. In an era where food is often about piling as many things as possible on top of each other, adding on the cheese and the potatoes and the pasta on the pizza, we can all find true peace, pleasure, and flavor in Odette's recipes. Progressing season by season, Simple Pasta brings us comfort classics and new challenges. Needless to say, I know what I'll be craving once this conversation is over. Odette Williams is an Australian cook and writer. Her first cookbook, Simple Cake, was named one of the best cookbooks of 2019 by the New York Times and was an Amazon bestseller. Odette has contributed to major national magazines and appeared on the Food Network. This summer, Odette debuts her Wall Street Journal column, Party Trick, that provides tips, hacks, and recipes for effortless entertaining. As I mentioned before, Carla Lalli Music joins Odette in conversation. Carla is the New York Times bestselling author of That Sounds So Good and received a James Beard Award for her first cookbook, Where Cooking Begins. She hosts Carla's Cooking Show on YouTube. Her favorite fruit is passion fruit, her favorite pasta shape is fusilli, and her favorite fermented food is kimchi. All right, so without any further delay, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Odette and Carla.
Favorite chair. Love it so much. Thank you guys for all being here, and thanks Odette for writing this beautiful book.
Aw, thank you. You're welcome.
I have lots of questions queued up. If you have anything that you wanted to say before we get into it.
Well, I just want to thank you all for coming out. Thank you, and I wanted to thank Carla for doing this.
My pleasure. I love pasta. I mean, you don't have to ask me twice.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Okay, I'm going to get right into it. We're going to talk about pasta shapes. We're going to talk about drinking. We're going to talk about design, photography, travel.
I'm here for
COVID,
all of that.
The whole 9 yards. All right, let's start this question actually I had written down, and then I asked people to send in questions to me today, and someone had submitted the exact same question. So I'll take that as a sign.
Mm-hmm.
And to tell us what is, or do you have your earliest pasta memory?
All right, well, in the intro I talk about when I was a kid. My mum, who is in the front here, we used to go to this Italian restaurant called the Trieste, which I think had carpet on the floor. Mum remembers otherwise, but I'm pretty sure there was carpet on the floor. And to get to the bathroom, you had to walk through the kitchen, and the menu never changed, and we would go there for a special treat, and it was like an old school Italian restaurant, and we would get sizzling garlic shrimp. I'll get to the pasta, I promise. And then we'd get spaghetti bolognese, a schnitzel, and we'd kind of split it all. So I would probably say a really good bolognese was the first thing that I experienced, but the one that really comes to mind is I lived on the west coast in Australia in Fremantle, and there's like a big Italian community there. and they had these old, there was a Sicilian that had come to Fremantle, and he'd set up this cafe trying to recreate the alfresco living of Italy in Fremantle, in boiling hot Fremantle, just like boiling hot Sicily. And they had potato gnocchi, and it was the first time I had potato gnocchi. And I still remember thinking, what is this? And they used to put the parmesan on the table, the grated parmesan on the table, so you could just reapply it as much as you want throughout the bowl of gnocchi. And even to this day, when I go and get gnocchi, I'm like, leave the parmesan. So, potato gnocchi.
That's a good, especially childhood, being in control of the cheese is really important.
It's
And,
important.
I was just telling Odette this, but I gave my son this book to look through as I was prepping for our chat, and just to say, you know, hey, I'm going to talk to this author, why don't you flag the recipes that appeal to you, and maybe there would be a theme. And he's flagged almost every page, but the one he said what looks really good is those gnocchi. Yes, we will have to make those gnocchis. Yes.
It's hilarious.
I was like, I got to. So actually, that's funny. Some segue, which I didn't plan, but I myself have been afraid for most of my life of making fresh pasta. I make pasta all the time. I love to make it. And my mom actually was the one who would always make the fresh pastas. And she makes a fresh pasta on Easter. She does this artichoke lasagna with these like, and to me it was always this like, you know, it was like a dark art or something. And gnocchi as well, like totally intimidated. I think even my first restaurant job, we had gnocchi on the menu, and the French chef who had it wouldn't let any of us, he wouldn't even teach any of us how to make it, because he was like, it's so particular that like you guys are all just gonna screw it up. So for people like me who are maybe intimidated, I think you've presented it in a way that makes it totally approachable. But why do you think people are so scared to make fresh pasta?
I think it's more that the dried stuff is so accessible and so good.
Yeah.
Is probably why, and then time efficiency,
Right.
You know, so I think it's, and then I think there's this other cultural part to it where if you haven't been taught, if you haven't seen someone make it or visually see them do this thing, then it just seems like too hard, doesn't it? Right? It's like, it's really nice when you go out and you pay for it, but do I really want to do that to myself at home? No. I think how I came at it was, I mean, I say in the book, I was like in my 40s before I'd done it, and, you know, I'd eaten pasta 7 nights of the week, you know, it was a crime. And then I was like, and then actually there's some friends in the audience here tonight, and they came round. I live by the seat of my pants here a little bit, and like I take on new recipes when people come over for dinner. My husband's always like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, I know, you know, like, I mean, I had tried to make pasta for the first time when they came round. And it was like, it was the inevitable thing. The first time when you don't know anything, and granted it was very rash, and, yeah, it was like, but you do it once, and then that's all you need to do it, and then you know it. And it's a very simple thing, and it's funny, I'm kind of describing it a bit like, I think when people hear the word dough, they're like intimidated. Yeah. I think, don't think of it as a dough. If I gave you a box cake and I said, you're going to mix this liquid and this flour, you know, and we're going to bring it together, and we're going to bring it together till it's smooth. Everyone can go, got it, you know? And even when I was taught, like with the egg dough, if you do it like with the well and you want to be a nonna and you want to have that whole experience, if you make your well and you put your eggs in the well and you just get a fork and you whisk the eggs, just think of it like you're mixing a cake batter and you're trying to get out the lumps, and then gradually you add more flour as you get out the lumps, and then before you know it, it kind of comes together, and then you bring it into a mass and you roll it into a ball and it's done.
Yeah.
And for potato gnocchi, I think psychologically it's even simpler because it's mashed potato, guys. And we all know it, right? It's mashed potato with parmesan, salt and pepper, and an egg. And then you roll it into snakes, and we can all think snakes got that. You know, like, so I think that, like, when I had that unlock, I'm like, I'm a good cook. And so if I'm a good cook and I haven't done it, I know I can help other people. I know I can unlock this pleasure of making homemade pasta. And it was like how it came about was we had moved to San Francisco for 3 years, and in that transition we were all kind of like in flux, and I was making a lot of homemade pasta to just kind of like ground us and make us feel settled. And it was my editor who saw me doing this and said, you make it look so simple as pasta.
Oh, nice.
You know, so that's how it happened.
Tell us a little bit about your pasta mentors. You mentioned Julia and Mama Sordo.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the book.
Well, I was writing the book in the pandemic, which was it was such a gift. Like, what a joyous subject I got to work on in a non-joyous time. And I had to do Zoom classes with this woman in Italy, and she was great. She was so amazing because she had the mentality of taking the romance out of it and just feeding people. And I thought that is so great. Like, let's not get swept up in, oh, you know, I'm going to make pasta and it's going to be so nice. No, they're hungry. Feed them. You know, and I liked that because then it feels like it's not like, oh, I make this on special occasions. It's more like, this is an every night thing that we can do, we can bust out, and you can do it in an hour.
Yeah.
If you really just, you know, with your head down.
Right.
Yeah, so, and then Mama Sordo. Oh, how can I forget her? So when I was in college, I lived with Anna Sordo, who was an Italian, and her mum used to bring around bolognese and marinara and put it in the freezer. And Anna was so sick of it. But Stephen and I, we were like coveting the sauce that was frozen, and like gradually over time we would like just take one, you know, like take one and then eventually look in the freezer and there's nothing there. And so I had some really great conversations with her when I was writing the book as well. And she was the one that taught me about the carrots in the red sauce.
Yeah.
You know, and the idea of just this sweetness that you can get from a carrot.
Yeah.
You know, like, so.
I will get to the sofrito as well. And I think going back to like making it feel approachable or helping people visualize it as a real thing that you're doing at home, the way that you photographed all those, there's tons of, whoever's not like flipped through, there's tons of step-by-steps, but they're just not presented, which I love about it, as like this very rigid sort of technical step-by-step moment. And I know the photographers that you worked with, and I'm curious how in the spirit of that, like a lot goes into just what the vibe is going to be visually. So can you talk a little bit about like how you got to a place where you could shoot a process in a way that feels really real, but is also instructional?
I found these photos of Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller, and they're in this hotel room, and it was taken by one of the Magnum photographers, and it just, something about those images just struck a chord with me because it was like a documentary style. They were eating, but it wasn't like the tablescape of everything being so beautiful, and it was more about their mood. And Marilyn was kind of like collapsed over, you know, and tired at the end of a meal, and there was wine, and I just knew straight away, like, I wanted to go for that feeling, and I knew then I wanted to put black and white in the book. And so I guess with the photographers, we just really approached it like, look, let's just shoot this like a documentary style where I'm going to just make it and they're going to shoot it, you know, and it's going to be in the kitchen that I'm in, or, you know, like we didn't really spend too much time, like, we just made it and shot it.
Not like set decorating every step of the way.
No.
Yeah.
And then also too, honestly, when you have like beautiful produce around and it's poking in and stuff, you don't really need to do too much.
Yeah, I think that just takes away the intimidation factor of having something look so precise or so controlled, where in the photos in the book it looks like that's the wood counter, that's the thing, that's what that's how dirty your fingertips are going to get, or whatever it is. And also for a pasta book that devotes 2 whole pages to schnitzel. I really enjoy that.
Amen. You're welcome.
I was like, oh, what's this? Yes, this is.
I know, my editor humoured me. I'm sure she was like, Odette, this is a pasta book, not about your life in schnitzel.
But that connects so much to that memory that you shared at the very beginning of those meals, of splitting the pasta and splitting the schnitzel, or then going through parts of your life where you were like, which one am I getting? Because I can't afford both.
Yeah.
Is it a schnitzel night or the,
or it's lasagna night? Oh, the torture, I'm still tortured. But actually, Carla, that's why I advocated for there being menus, because I didn't want it just to be pasta, because I want, if you guys have friends over, I want you to not have to sweat planning around that. So like, I love those restaurants that you go to that have a blackboard menu and you're like, great, they've done the thinking, everything on this is awesome.
Right.
So all I need to do is kind of choose my main meal. And the rest is, and I love that. I love that curation, and everything is fantastic. And then too, like, often it just takes the load off you with just pasta. Like you have a great salad that's full of citrus, or, you've got a roast chicken in there. They're kind of like hands-off things that can just support a bigger meal if you've got more than, say, 4 people coming over.
Right. I mean, and that's very Italian too, to not have the pasta course be the end all and be all to the dinner.
Yeah.
The shrimp are part of that menu. Those amazing looking fried shrimp that I really want to make.
Yeah.
And you have a great way of describing the kind of vibe that sets at the beginning of the meal, to have little snacks like that. I'm never gonna find the page.
Yeah, it's
but
like
maybe
that,
I will.
Yeah, it's like that fried. I mean, who doesn't want a fried morsel and a martini
Right.
at the beginning of a night? I mean, bring it on. Like I describe it as like the engine to the night. It's like
That's what
we're
I was
on.
looking
You know?
for. This combo will whet appetites and give the night an engine. I love that, because it really does like get it going in a way that's more descriptive than like appetizer.
Yeah.
It's like, it gets you like ready.
Buzzed
to go.
on. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like we had a dinner party in San Francisco, and I was writing the book, and I made those, and people were just standing around the kitchen, and I had prepped the shrimp beforehand, so they were breaded and ready to go, and I'd made the aioli, and so in a way too, guys, if you kind of like plan ahead like that, then you can enjoy the night as well. And so that had been prepped, and I was just standing around and frying the shrimp in a little like shallow oil, doesn't require a lot, and having a martini, and everyone just like is so delighted by this, because when you get like a little fried morsel like that of shrimp, it's like not an everyday thing, and it feels special, and I don't think people just kind of lap it up.
For sure, I would lap it up. They look, when I first turned to the page, they look a little bit like fried chicken wings, and I was like, wow.
Could have been chicken tenders.
Going back to the martini and the engine, there are a lot of great drink suggestions in here, from wine to like you have actual lots of little mixed drinks and the limonada 75. And when did that part of your like eating, entertaining piece come together with what the alcohol is going to be, or what the drink is?
I really think the wine and the drinking is kind of for the home cook, not for when you go to a restaurant. They've really thought about that, but sometimes it's a little bit daunting at home especially if you don't know wine that well, and maybe you don't normally make cocktails, or you maybe don't have certain kind of liquors there. So I wanted just to demystify that,
Right.
you know, like, and say, all right, what's the things that I really love? And for the wine, I worked with a friend who I gave him the recipes, and then he set me wine recommendations, and so I did like tastings of those. It was very tough, and
We feel for you.
and I really wanted to guide you. I was like, oh my goodness, like I tried a Vermentino, which is a white from Sardinia, and the description of it, oh yeah, we'll get to that, the Prosecco Tower.
So pretty.
But when I tried it, I was like, oh my goodness, like this dish needs this Vermentino. Like I wanted a wine that made me feel like I was on the Mediterranean and I could just drink a bottle of it and still walk out of the restaurant. You know, like that kind of guidance of, and then, so I loved the cocktails and the starters for the evening, because I really do think that they set the evening, and I love, like, wine is, I'll just always want to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think that's news you can use is like make friends with someone who's really into the wine. Like when people say, what can I bring? Like tell exactly what you just did. Like tell someone what you're gonna serve and have them go and like make friends with the wine guy and like figure it out for you and bring it over.
Well, I'm always like delighted when I learn something new. Like I went to Ignacio Matos's Ultra Paradiso, the restaurant in Manhattan, and I had a lunch and ordered a glass of red wine, and I was just knocked my socks off. You know, like one of those moments where you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, and I like emailed the restaurant and then, you know, ordered the case. And it was like, and that's the, I love, that's what's great about food and wine. It's like, it's just, you always got more to learn and experience and fall in love with, and,
Yeah.
you know.
And during the pandemic, we were going through cases, like...
We're going through cases.
Going back to that, when you were working and developing the book, it was lockdown, it sounds like. And that wasn't the plan as well. Like, you don't plan, obviously nobody planned for a pandemic, but when you sold the idea for the book, it was in the, like, pre-times?
Yeah, it's funny. I think it had all been locked in, and pasta had been decided, but the pandemic hadn't started. Mm-hmm. And I think I just maybe begun, and we were in California, and I think I was honestly blessed because the produce is so good all year round. So I could get my hands on a lot of produce with the recipe testing. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, like, I was so fortunate, Carla, because I had this topic that just is full of pleasure.
Right.
You know, so even though we couldn't travel or go anywhere or do anything, I could in my head. You know, I could travel in my imagination. And then the pandemic kind of like went on, and then towards the end of it, we decided to shoot the cookbook at the very end of the process. And so I'd basically written the manuscript, all the recipes were done, and we did a week shooting in Fire Island, and then the photographers were really advocating to go and shoot in Italy, and I was like, I don't know, you guys, this is crazy. And you know, like, this is gonna end in tears, like, you know, no. And then it was Opal, my daughter, who said to me, I was like, they're going, this is crazy, and she said, Mum, you can't write a pasta book and not go to Italy. So I was like, sold.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So we very bravely, as a team, head over to Sicily, and
So brave.
somehow, so brave. It was really, really tough. and it was like, we stayed in this amazing villa that we found, like an Airbnb in this town, Masala. And it's not much in Masala, but the villa was very good, you know, like, but we were working, you guys, come on now. And so we shot, and that also is like, I think what translates into the photographs, honestly, is because, you know, you would know this, Carla, just from, you can do a lot with props.
Yeah.
But if you really want to document something, just go to that environment. And if you take a team of really talented people and put them in an inspiring situation, like, great things happen.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what happened. Like,
Yeah, I think that really does give that feel for the book, and that things feel real and obviously, like, still really beautiful. At the same time, it doesn't mean that it's going to be, like, messy or undone or... but just really gorgeous and a lot of vibes, which is hard to get when you're sort of in this semi-lockdown. With my book, That Sounds So Good, very similar, like, everything had been planned out. It was December 2019, January 2020, I was just getting started on recipe development, and then everything, like, happened, and it was this, I was in a tailspin about where we were going to shoot, because no one had been on set together, and figuring out, like, how to get everybody together with shoot protocols that hadn't been invented yet, and where to stay, and the money, and, like, the whole thing. And all the Airbnbs were gone because everybody wanted to, like, get out of the city. And then I was, like, flipping out one day. My husband, like, sat down, and he was like, I have an idea, and I think it's going to solve the problem. Like, there's no way it's going to solve the problem. And he was like, I think we should shoot the book at home. And I was like, And it was like, that was the solution. So there was, like, my stuff was around, you know, my son was the prop stylist assistant. Like, it just changes the vibe. If you can do that, it's hard to imagine than shooting in a studio. It's just a completely different feeling. I have more questions about the design, but I will move forward.
well, actually, I'll talk to the design a bit more, because I feel like I love the design part, and I love the photo shoots, and it's a crazy, like, balance, because you spend a year writing it and 2 weeks shooting it.
Right.
You know, like, so when you're on for the shoot, you're on. And even though it sounds like a lot of fun, it's funny, you really do feel like you have this opportunity to, it's a narrow window to capture what has been a year's work. And it's something that I wish was a longer period, you know, of the process.
Yeah, it's definitely, for me, the funnest part, because the recipe development can be, like, a very solitary experience, or unnaturally, like, everybody was around, which was, like, during lockdown, I was trying to develop recipes and the whole family was home, like, so that was, like, also distracting in a completely different way. But the parts where you get to shoot, you have this creative, all these people around you, and working on it together, it's definitely the most fun. It's way more fun than copy editing. The word, writing the last, like, 10 head notes, and the copy editing is where I definitely, like, curse the most.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. You know, there's many a night you stay up saying, I'm never doing this again.
Well, I would just open up recipes and be like, okay, I need another head note, and then I would just start writing and be like, literally do whatever, I don't care. And it's like, that's not, you can't.
I don't mind the head notes, actually. I love the head notes. I love writing the names for the recipes. I don't like here you've said the order of the words were this, and this, and this. Okay, here it's this, and that, you know, and, like, let's balance this up. And when that is, like, it's a tedious, like, meticulous, it's a different part of your brain.
For sure. I love your recipe names. They're and your head notes, like, super chatty, written the way you talk, and funny, and, like, exclamation points, and that's how it should be. All right, I want to ask you, I have Sofrito questions. All right. Just talking about pasta shape.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a safe space. Favorite and least favorite pasta shapes?
Oh, least favorite agnolotti.
Oh.
It nearly didn't make it in the book.
Because they're tricky to make?
Yeah, because I really debated. I'm like, I don't think this should go in the book. It's not simple.
Right.
It's not simple for the home cook. But then it was like that thing of like, yeah, but then you also want to give someone something to move towards if they are more experienced or they do want to like go into other territory. Or maybe you just want to dream one day you'll make it, you know, like, so, you know, that's where the curation to like, I think simple is hard, you know, because you've got to say to yourself like, okay, I've been learning, I've been doing this, but to the home cook, you know, what are they going to do?
Right.
So, favorite shape otherwise, like...
Well, that was your least favorite.
That was my least favorite. I mean, look, I really, if you're going to start with the filled pastas, guys, just make like the panzotti or the mezzalune, which everyone can kind of like wrap their head around because it's a little triangle or a little half moon. And so, you know, okay, I'm going to cut in a circle or I'm going to cut a square. And I think like they're the simple ones. They're really simple, very forgiving.
And your favorites? Are they your favorites?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
And then,
See.
what is a pasta that like you think everybody should make at home, and what is the pasta that you only order when you're out?
Okay, all right. Guys, here's how I tackle this. Start with the ricotta gnocchi. Okay, it's nothing. It's so easy. It's just ricotta, a bit of flour, you know, salt and pepper, a bit of parmesan. It's going to be wet and sticky, but it's going to come together. And then you're going to put the luxurious pomodoro sauce on it. Everyone must go away and make the luxurious pomodoro sauce because it comes together in less than 20 minutes. You think it's like been simmering for hours. And it's the red sauce that just it goes on a pound of pasta perfectly. So just good to know that sauce. So start there. Graduate then to the potato gnocchi because you don't need any equipment there. You can just use a box grater if you need to on the finest side or a microplane to like get the potatoes really fine. Then you're going to graduate to the egg dough. And the egg dough, the way I would look at it is don't do what I did on the first night with my friends. I would start a little earlier, and I'd give yourself some time. And you can make the dough even the night before and seal it up and put it in the fridge. But like start with like fettuccine. Just do fettuccine and put the wicked white bolognese with it, or put the luxurious pomodoro, you know, like, or put a pesto with it. And just when you see like the pasta come out, and you'll be like, this is amazing, you know, and I'm drinking wine and I'm making my own pasta. I'm so awesome, you know. And then I think that's when you head to the filled pastas, because then you'll get a sense of like, oh, I see what Odette's saying about like the dough drying out, or I get a sense of like how thin number 5 is on the rolling machine. And you'll really get like a handle of it very, very quickly. Or you could put me on speed dial. Or you can also use dried pasta. So for many, many, many of the recipes, because I get it, like sometimes you don't have the bandwidth for the fresh stuff.
Yeah.
So, and that is perfectly fine.
Yeah, there's really beautiful bronze cut, you know, gorgeous Italian pastas that they're expensive. Like sometimes, I mean, compared to Ronzoni or an ordinary brand, sometimes I'm like, wow, pound of pasta is like $7.29. But when you think about that, feeding 4 people, it makes a ton of sense.
I think also the other thing is like, just make a day of it. Like, call your friends and figure it out together. Like, you don't have to have it all buttoned up. Like, do it together, and then it become, you know, a tradition, or, you know, be something that you remember, and you won't feel like you're doing it alone. You'll have comrades.
Would you say the egg pasta is more difficult? That's more difficult than just the ones with water?
I mean, here's the semolina doughs are easier to come together, but to make the shapes, it's better you need a bit of practice. Like to make orecchiette, like, like it's
a knack.
It's a knack.
Yeah.
It takes you a little while to kind of get the feel of it.
I can make a cavatelli, which is similar to how to but I can't. The orecchiette is just like I can't turn them inside out. They just like, it doesn't work. And that's something where, like YouTube, you were talking about Zoom, watching people make it. Like you can, it's amazing what you can watch on YouTube of people demonstrating these things that if you don't have a person to show you how to do it. Visually you can learn very quickly. Orecchiette eludes me.
I mean, the thing with the semolina doughs is I always just think, like, how creative, like, who were the people that went, you know what, let's put some water on this flour. Let's roll it up. I wonder if we can, like, we can eat it. Okay, let's how do we cook it? Oh, I'll put it in boiling water. Oh, great, all right. I'm a bit sick of the ball. Like, what am I going to do? Oh, my God, let's make it into these shapes. I mean, it's so creative when you really think about all the shapes of pasta. I mean, it's amazing. It's an art. It's phenomenal. And we take it totally for granted, when we look at it.
Totally. Okay, it is middle of November. No, it's late January. It's nasty out. It's dark. For whatever reason, you have found yourself alone at home on a Friday night. No family, nothing going on. It's stormy. You're not going outside. What pasta are you making for yourself? This is alone pasta.
You're making the wicked white bolognese. You're making that. And then the next morning, whatever you don't finish, you're having on toast with butter. So, I mean, it's like it's a great bolognese. It's not like your red sauce bolognese. I describe it in the book as having a bit more panache, because it's got white beans in it. It's got chicken stock. It's got a little dash of cream and bay leaves and just like hits all the notes. And then you know what shape you're going to do? You're going to go out and you're going to buy macaroni. And I know it's a surprise ticket, but when I was recipe testing, I was like, every mouthful you get equal portions of pasta and bolognese. Like it was just like this magic. So,
and that was another one that had the sofrito, right? Talk about sofrito a little bit.
Well, I think sofrito, guys, is for those that don't know, it's like when you fry like onions and carrot and celery. It's like a base for many, many dishes. And I think the thing that most people don't realize is to cook it low and slow. So if you just are a little bit patient and you take your time and you use a great oil and you like really just let it kind of caramelize, that's when you're going to get all this flavor from these basic ingredients. So feel free to take your time there on those steps.
And that's the picture. This one Cosmo flagged as well. So this one is one that I have to make in my future, but really beautiful and love, like a bolognese that, probably took, 40-ish minutes to make. And most of that is like inactive simmering, cooking down the sofrito. And it's cool how, like, this is an Italian sofrito, but there's Spanish sofritos. There's like the holy trinity of sofritos in the south, and mirepoix and it's like all the same, but how you cook it so that texture just becomes like smush, really. I asked for questions via Instagram, and someone asked, with fresh pastas, how do you know when they're done? Because that al dente, the al dente endpoint is a little more elusive. So what is the best tip for you've made your beautiful fresh pasta? How do you know when it's done?
The great thing about fresh pasta is it takes longer to make but quicker to cook. So it's like minutes. And the best thing, honestly, to do, guys, is just fish something out and put it in your mouth and have a taste and get a sense. Like, is that the texture that I like? You know, like al dente is different for everyone, right? So it's like just fish it out and say, does this feel good? Does this feel right? You know, like it's usually, if it's egg dough, it's like a couple of minutes. If it's fettuccine, you know, if you've rolled it pretty thin. For gnocchi, you know, we're probably talking like 3-4 minutes max. For the semolina doughs, you're going a little bit longer there because they're kind of like toothsome and chewy, depending on how you've kind of shaped them as well.
Right.
But I'm not into, it's controversial, but I'm not into super al dente. Nick and I we went to a restaurant in Paris and it was recommended and it was a pasta restaurant. Maybe that was the problem, pasta restaurant in Paris. Should have been a red flag. and the pasta was so al dente. I was like, this has gone too far. You know, like, this is wrong. So I think just trust your instincts. You know what you like, you know? And the other thing I would say about cooking pasta actually is one of my favorite tools is a spider, which is like, you know, the netting, and it's great because you can just fish out pasta very quickly, because that's the other part too. It's like when it's done, so get it out, you know, and that spider can just help you. And then also too, then you're not draining the pasta water down the sink,
Right.
and you've always got it then on hand. Or if you're doing a second batch, and sometimes that's what I do if I'm cooking a lot, I'll just, you know, keep the water going. And
There's nothing sadder than pouring the pasta water down the drain before you scooped and saved. So yeah, I think those spiders cost like $8. You can get them really in the ones with the bamboo handle. You can get in any restaurant supply store on the Bowery, and I use them for literally everything.
Yeah, same.
All right, we're gonna segue into questions, and I'm just gonna start with there was one question that I got on Instagram that I thought was really funny. I have to look it up. Someone asked, if you were a cheese, what cheese would you be? And why? That was very, car enthusiast 75 would like to know not only which cheese.
Why was it cheese? Not a stinky one.
Oh my god.
I'm actually thinking about this. Well, I'm going to keep it in the theme of the book. I would do the Pecorino Toscano.
Nice. A little sharp.
Little sharp,
sassy.
But softer than your super salty
That's right.
Pecorinos.
Yeah.
And, you know, like a little, like, just more mellow.
Young.
Strong, but mellow.
And this one I thought was a really good question. Can cheese and fish in pasta work? I think a lot of us have been like trained to think that you're not allowed.
Look, I think yes. I think yes. You do you. If you want cheese on your pasta and it's got fish in there, you knock yourself out.
Great.
I really do. I think that, like, I think where the cheese can sometimes, this is more from a recipe testing. If you're needing to put cheese on something at the very end, maybe something's missing in the dish. You know, like, so maybe from our point of view, we would need to ask ourselves that question. But for the eater, I'm like, you know.
Maybe it's just something they don't want us to find out, you know? It like unlocks another level.
Yeah.
How about for you guys? Any questions out there?
For beginners, what do you think that the best pasta dish is to start out with?
I think the potato gnocchi with a luxurious pomodoro, if going from scratch. I think, if not, if you've never just made your own pesto, make your own pesto and buy store-bought pasta even. I would start there. I would start with those sauces at the front of the book and then decide whether you want to put them on a homemade pasta or if you want to do a store-bought pasta.
The pestos in the book are not your typical, they're so inventive, there's different greens, there's different nuts. It takes like a whole different, our definition of what people think pesto is not, it doesn't have to be Genovese. I loved all the black kale and the toasted walnuts. It all sounded really, really yummy. Anyone else?
And we're like, no, can we just go and have a drink?
Hi. How do you get your final idea for your recipe? Do you try lots of different versions of it in different cookbooks and then come up with your own? What's your process?
It depends. Like sometimes in the proposal for the book, I had kind of laid out flavor combinations I think I wanted to tackle or have in there. And then from there, like I'd cook into it and realize like, oh, that doesn't work. Or like maybe I'd had a creamy gnocchi at a restaurant that I was trying to recreate. Or if not, even just other cookbooks that I've just loved. And, like I would be like, oh, I love how simple that is. Or it's like a mix. It's a mix of like eating out and trying new recipes, or if not, just knowing like I like with the lamb ragu. Like I had fennel in the fridge. I was like, I have this fennel bulb. I have lamb. I know they're gonna go, and it was kind of like it just kind of came together so easily. And I was like, yeah, that's a winner. I'm into this. Like, and that was kind of more like a fridge dump in a way.
Yeah. I love how memory played such a big part in so many of the recipes, and that sizzling shrimp dish, ending up with the malfadini pasta. I think that's if you're trying to create recipes or looking for a place of inspiration, it's such a good place to start. And people think that developing or creating a recipe, I get this a lot, that it has to be a dish that doesn't exist, right? Like if you're gonna write a recipe, it's like some dish that has never been made, and it's like couldn't be further from the truth. It's like your take on what like lamb and fennel, they go great. They're in lots of things. They're gonna work,
Actually, I think that's the hard part too. Is sometimes you have to say to yourself, don't just invent for invention's sake.
Yeah.
Like just deliver that thing very well.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
What was the first homemade pasta you made, Odette?
Well, they were known as pasta steaks because I did not roll the pasta thin enough. And luckily, I had roasted a chicken, and luckily the sauce that I had made for the pasta was I had like just done a sage and corn, brown butter sauce. So that was good enough to hide. Not quite the pasta steaks, but that was the first one, but that's what's great about pasta is, right? It's so forgiving because if you put a great sauce on it, like even if you just put butter and great cheese, like that's the ticket. Like there's even a recipe in there saying good butter, good pasta, end of story.
I love that one. It's so beautiful. It's like an Alfredo with like less, even less work, which is amazing.
But yeah, that was the first one, Laurie, and it was. So I'm saying that to you, like, don't be disheartened if the first rodeo, is not perfection.
Yeah,
the next one will be.
It's still edible.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can eat it. And also for any gluten-free people, there's great gluten-free alts and great advice on like how to make the fresh doughs with the Caputo. Is it the Caputo gluten-free flour mix?
Yeah, it's a great gluten-free flour.
And it made so much sense to not roll it out as thin, because that's when it doesn't have like the integrity. But yeah, it was really cool to see that as well.
And you really can't. The taste is very, very similar. That's what's astounding. Is they've really nailed the gluten-free 00 flour. So it's a great flour.
One more question.
Can you talk to us about the Prosecco Tower?
Yeah.
That works.
Yes, Jean, I can. All right. So I had been looking at all these 1950s kind of like La Dolce Vita images, and I'm always like rummaging around on eBay and Etsy looking at vintage lots for, you know, $20, and I'd become obsessed with the champagne coupe. You know, I was like, the coupe needs to come back, you know, like. And so I bought these like etched coupes, and then in the boredom of like, I think in the boredom of COVID and lockdown, I just started stacking the 5 coupes that I had on a Friday night and pouring champagne into it. You know, so it was like a champagne tower for one. And I was like, yes, that's the spirit, you know, like. And so I was like, and it's funny. I love my editor for just letting me run with that and run with the schnitzel, my life in schnitzel and that, because I can give you recipes and we can talk very seriously about pasta and technique and whatever, but really that's not what the book is about. The book is just about you guys having a great time and feeling good and getting pleasure and finding humor in things, and that's what the champagne tower is about. Like, it's like, yeah, you've had a hard week, you pour yourself, you stack those glasses, you get the straw out, you put the tray underneath so you don't lose a drop, you know, I mean, and that's what the book is about, you know, it's about feeling good.
You can do it with Martinelli's cider if you wanted. It would work.
Yeah.
Not as much fun.
Maybe martinis. Maybe.
All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you, Odette and Carla, for joining us. And of course, thank you to everyone who asked questions. As I mentioned earlier, Odette will be signing and personalizing books at the desk behind me by the side entrance. If you haven't picked up a copy of Simple Pasta yet, we've got plenty available for purchase tonight, as well as Odette's previous book, Simple Cake. We also have both of Carla's books available tonight, and I believe if you ask nicely, she will also personalize copies for you. Otherwise, we ask that you give Odette a minute to get settled, but then please do make your way downstairs so that our event staff can start to rearrange the space. Once you get your book signed, you're welcome to exit through the side entrance by the desk. I think that's all from me. Let's give Odette and Carla one last round of applause.